Hello, everyone. I am Claudio Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire podcast, and my guest today is Emma Farrell. Emma is a plant spirit healer, shamanic teacher, and author. She has held plant diet retreats and ceremonies in England and Wales in 2016. She holds a master's degree in the preservation and development of wisdom culture and the art of liberation in the Tibetan Buddhist Mahayana tradition, writing her thesis on understanding the nature of the self through lucid dreaming. She has been initiated into indigenous healing and magical lineages of the British Isles and the Ecuadorian Amazon. She's also a geomancer, psychic surgeon, and entity remover specialist. Emma is the founder of the School of Natural Esoterics, the Plant Consciousness Apothecary, and runs a remote healing practice. She co-founded Plant Consciousness, the groundbreaking London event about the conscious, intelligent world of plants and trees. She's also the author of the book Journeys with Plant Spirits. You can find more about Emma at plantconsciousness.com. Emma, thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, hi, Claudio. Thank you for the invite.
I can tell you I had a blast reading your book. I have it here. It was quite a journey for me, a journey in the world of plants and trees. And I would like to look deeper into it because it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you enjoyed the book. Looks like you've got lots of annotations there as well.
Yes. And I would like to ask a question which I usually don't ask, but because you are so connected to spirit, have you asked your spirit's guide or any plant spirit if you should attend this interview?
Oh, no, I don't need to outsource my questions to anything outside of myself. I just kind of tune in with my higher self,
Perfect.
highest self.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know you went through or used both iboga and ayahuasca in plant ceremonies. Was there a difference between the two, and were the messages different?
Yeah, they were hugely different. So, bearing in mind that I was completely new to plant medicine when I was blessed enough to be invited to an iboga ceremony, it was the first plant medicine that I took. So, it was quite paradigm shifting for me in that I was suddenly able to have a conversation with the spirit of a plant. And I sat and had a good conversation for at least an hour where I was just asking questions and getting responses, truthful responses as well. And then asking questions. At the time, I was studying for my master's. And so I was asking it kind of questions, and it was teaching me Buddhist concepts. So it was just like really quite profound. And so that for me was just, something else. And then with the ayahuasca, that was just a bit more brutal, to be honest. It was, although I've heard iboga can be, very powerful, and they call it, breaking the skull open, I think, but with ayahuasca, for me, it really helped me to break through other conditionings, and kind of get to the root cause of trauma. It really reflects your own consciousness back at you so that you can just see where all the kind of like the hidden parts are, or the forgotten parts, or the kind of not so good parts are. And so then after the ceremony, you can kind of do that, that's your homework. So yeah, it was, they were quite different for me.
And in your book, you mentioned that the first ayahuasca ceremony was quite traumatic because you're a newbie to plant medicine. And it revealed a lot of trauma and hidden issues for you. And since then, after you dealt with this trauma, have you tried again to see if there is more there, or the messages are different this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with ayahuasca for a number of years, both kind of in Europe and over in the Amazon. So yeah, it's been a journey. And of course, every day we're a different person. when we're kind of on the spiritual path, we're constantly doing work on ourselves. So we're constantly in process, and especially when you work with plants. I work with common native plants now, but it's the same process basically. And so you're a different person every day. So absolutely, every time you kind of work with plants and do the same kind of work with the same plant over and over again, you of course get different teachings, different methods, because you're on a different part of your own path. So your own development. So absolutely, my ayahuasca journey really kind of went into, once I'd worked through a lot of stuff, and it was, some really kind of like, some of the deepest traumas that we have to kind of endure as humans, I worked through with that plant. But then it kind of moved into a space of then opening me up to all of the plants. And so that's when I realized that I could, that I wanted to find out what my native plants and trees would say, and how they could heal, and what the plant spirits of my own common native plants were like. So that, it's a blessing from ayahuasca that, that it's able to do that, open you up to the rest of nature.
Yes, and I met various people, some which are on their 100th ayahuasca ceremony and they still want to do it. Others which had one or two and they said, you know what, I think it's enough for us. We got what we wanted. The message was clear. Now we are on our own, or we're going to look at other options. And even for myself, haven't done many, but after the last one, I felt that I don't need to go again anytime soon. So it's been more than 2 years now, almost 2 years, and I really don't feel the need to go back to that experience. And again, it was a little bit traumatic, even if it wasn't the first one. So at the same time, that's why I'm not keen to going back to something like that,
Yeah, well, it's medicine, isn't it? So you
Yes.
only need it for a short amount of time. And I think the mistake that some people make is that, everything's going to be sorted out in one ceremony. But it's not. That's the start of your process. The plants are teachers. They're called teacher plants for a reason. They give you the work. They show you what work needs to be done. And they help you along to get that process started. But then integration of that can take months and years, actually. So, we really don't need to be kind of continuously taking this plant, for years and years at all, So yeah, absolutely. I agree. And same, I haven't for
Yeah.
years.
And people have to understand that these are medicine plants. And I heard someone recently talking in front of the congressional hearing saying that iboga is a healer, is a medicine, and there are studying being done on it, and they are being used on releasing PTSD and other uh, diseases, which can, sorry?
Addictions,
Addictions, exactly, addictions, which cannot be healed with or get rid of with regular with standard medicine, standard drugs. And the government and the medical bodies are still resisting, even if they see these reports, even if they see people healed, they still resist to this type of medicine.
Yeah, well, big pharma has a lot of power.
Yes. Something else in your book which just puzzled me is that you admitted that during your um, planned a spiritual journey, you encountered black magic. How did it happen to you, and how did you push it away?
Yeah, so I went to the Amazon and stayed in a tribe or a community that hadn't really had Westerners stay with them before. And so it wasn't an ayahuasca community or anything like that, although they did work with that plant. And when I arrived with a small group of people and my teacher, we realized that the community were under a lot of pressure and threats from communities outside of their kind of like their territory. And so they were getting kind of, there was this tribal warfare going on. And in the Amazon, it's very much an energetic war. And you know, and so it's kind of, you know, they're throwing kind of black magic at each other, as, you know, that's just, you know, and so it's a protective thing for them. However, when we stepped into that, you know, then, you know, they kind of responded to us in a similar way, and that, you know, they don't know who we are. We could be threats. So they were testing us. And so, and there's lots of different kinds of magic down there. And so we do have this idea that anybody who works with ayahuasca is spiritual, but in parts of the Amazon, it's really not even often worked with for healing. It's literally worked with to look into the spaces of neighboring shamans and communities and tribes to see what's going on for self-defense, and also to and to enact and kind of work with magic in a much more powerful way. So yeah, I experienced it in terms of being tested, you know, all kinds of magic being thrown at me. And, you know, people say, oh, black magic doesn't exist and it only exists if you believe in it. And it's not quite true, because magic only exists if you believe in it, if it's your magic. If somebody else believes in their magic, it works on you, whether you believe it or not. So, you know, it's, and that we can learn from it, of course. It's really challenging to deal with because it's a psychic attack. But what it does is it, negative energy or black magic takes the path of least resistance. So it will get into your energy field through an unresolved doorway, kind of a part of your psyche. You know, your psyche, your energy field is the same thing. And so if you've got unresolved trauma within your psyche, then you've got a gateway, like a hole in your energy field. That's because you don't have the light of consciousness in that part of your energy field. And so that's how stuff gets in. So it's a teacher, like everything. It's, you know, we can kind of, it's not pleasant, and it's really wouldn't want to go through it again, but it did help me to understand how entities are used, how what they are, how different energies are used, how kind of like things can be used for either good or bad. You know, magic is just it's you know, and there's kind of black and white magic, but there's gray magic as well in between, but gray still has a little bit of black in it. So you just kind of, you know, you have to make sure that it's your intention, and it's how you use your magic, it's how you use your intention. Because we use magic all the time, you know, it's just how conscious are we of it.
Yeah, so, one of my early guests, Wade Davis, author and ethnographer from British Columbia, he went to Haiti for 2 weeks to study a specific method of bringing people back from the dead. And he ended up staying 2 years and becoming a member of their most secretive society. And it was a women's society of witches. And they accepted him in, and he's sworn to secrecy. He cannot tell what would happen there, and he cannot say anything about their procedures and methods, but it's pretty bad, as dark or as black as it can get. So he was exposed to this type of magic, and he only, you know, slightly touches the subject when asked, but we know it is real, and it is real in other parts of Africa as well.
Yeah, well, necromancy, that's what that's called. And I've never actually come across that myself, but yeah, that's pretty dark because you're playing God, you know. Yeah. And you know, the results can be really, I've read about it, it can be really quite disastrous for everybody involved. So yeah, I could imagine that's pretty dark.
You know, throughout our discussion, I will read some quotes from your book because I really like them, and I think there are good points for the discussion. So one of them is, many believe that the war on consciousness is the reason why many of our visionary plans are illegal, that their power to wake us up to the reality of life and to our own free-thinking mind is contrary to the plan of the ones who govern us. What these plants actually do, though, is teach us how to die. I really like that quote. Can you please expand on it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit self-explanatory in that of course, to be controlled, to keep us in order and doing the things that the opposing forces or the government want us to do, then they don't want us to find out who we truly are. And so what a lot of these visionary plants and what the teacher plants do, and actually not just teacher plants, it's many plants, they strip away these layers of conditioning, these layers of the false self, until you just kind of get through the ego and and to a healthy ego, because we need the ego, but below these kind of like layers of conditionings, etc., till we just become kind of who we are naturally. Do we just come to a place of ease within ourselves? And so once we get to that place and we start really connecting with our highest self, then we start to realize just how powerful we are actually. And if we all kind of start realizing how powerful we are, we don't need governance, because you start to just really appreciate self-governance and taking responsibility for yourself, and therefore stepping outside of being told what you have to do, etc. So of course that's a great threat to the authorities. And so, but that process of stripping away, what a lot of the plants and trees do is that they have this ability to show us, if we died, or if you died right now, this is what you'd experience in the astral space. So when we die, a part of our energy body or our eternal spirit has to move through the astral space. The lower astral, particularly the abyss or the void. This is all the kind of like the Egyptians had many initiations to get through the astral space. Shamanic practices have many initiations to teach us how to get through the astral space. And one of them, and this is what a lot of the plants and trees do, they initiate us into this, because we've lost in the Western world, we've lost this practice and the rituals of initiation. And so they show us, okay, they bring up from the depths of our subconscious, stuff that we need to look at, and that could be entities, it can be from other lives, it could be stuff from your childhood, it could be, kind of like family traumas, ancestral traumas, curses on your family, it can be all sorts of things. So it gets brought up to the surface into conscious awareness for healing. But if you died before you did any of this healing, and in your kind of like your life review or whatever your belief system is, but you get to you have to kind of like face yourself. The astral space is about self-reflection. It's a mirror, that space.
Yes.
And so when you get to that space, you're going to see yourself, and it's not going to be pretty, but you're going to be in a place where you're much less able to recognize yourself. You'll see you're still locked in that dualistic perspective. So you'll see it separate to you, and it'll be really scary and really difficult for you to kind of move through. Whereas if you dealt with it, you've recognized that, that being that I was kind of plagued by, it's both me, it's not me, but it's me as well. And so you do the healing around it, and it no longer bothers you anymore. And so you don't meet that in the afterlife. So this is all of the realm of both teacher plants and common native plants. They all teach this.
Yes, and the reason I resonated with this paragraph is because I do believe that the main reason the governments don't want us to access the plant medicine realm is because we are going to awake into who we really are. And I've been saying this since I started this podcast. And people have to understand and acknowledge that we have an ego which keeps us alive in our day-to-day interaction with others. And the government has its own ego. It's made out of multiple individuals with their own egos, creating a bigger ego, and they fight for their own survival, for that structure which governs us. So the moment we get to plant medicine and understand who we are, the ego goes to a lower level, the consciousness goes higher, then we know that we don't have to hurt our neighbor. We have to love our neighbor. And as you said, the more love we spread and others around us spread, we need less laws because we don't have to be protected from others or others to be protected from us. So that means smaller government. And we just read 2 days ago that in Canada alone, in the last 7 years, the government grew by 40%, which is unbelievable. That means the government can control more people because they work for the government. So it's a very smart and sneaky way to get a critical mass, control a critical mass of people in one country.
Yeah, that's a good perspective of the government being like this collective ego. I like that. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it works. And of course, there it's, you know, that's the dualistic kind of reality we live in, isn't it? This kind of like thinking that we have to fight. Whereas if we just recognize that actually, you know, we're kind of, I don't want to say we're all one, it's a bit kind of cliche, but, you know, we are, we're all in this collective consciousness together. At the very least, we can understand that. And so, yeah.
And compared to the next paragraph, which I'm going to read, the plant spirits are more evolved than us, having awakened their eternal self. And it is awareness of this aspect of plant consciousness that can assist our own advancement. So they work together, they help each other. Because I read many books about trees and how they work in the forest. If one doesn't have enough sap, the trees around that tree will provide the necessary sap in order for the tree to survive. And it's just a symbiosis, and they work together, and there is no competition.
Yeah, and so it works on the spirit level like that as well. You know, so the plant spirits, you can work with one individual plant spirit. So when I talk about individual plant spirit, I'm talking, so just say I work with, I work with, say, the spirit of the oak tree. You can work with the spirit of a particular oak tree, one oak tree, or the overarching Davic spirit, the kind of like the Apu spirit, the guardian spirit of the whole species, the oak spirit. So that's the level of plant spirit I'm talking about. But then additionally to that, in the spirit world, spirits, those plant spirits are not, they don't have so much kind of protectiveness over their sense of self, so they can kind of merge to create one consciousness. So you can get, I work with groups of plant spirits that merge into one, so I only have to deal with one kind of like consciousness rather than separate. And so this idea is quite challenging for us because we're so used to having kind of our individual self in this kind of reality, but actually there's much more of a group consciousness in the astral space, in the other world. So so yeah, it works on an energetic level as well. And they, of course, they kind of take care of each other. Absolutely. You know, they bring the balance to each other that, you know, nature always wants to move back to balance. Yes. So even on that spiritual level, you know, the plants and trees want to move into that place and to help each other bring balance. And they're really evolved. You know, that's a really evolved way of working. They don't only operate in the astral space. That's just one part of the bandwidth of their frequency, like ours. You know, they some of them really connect into some high vibration places, you know, blueprint level kind of really fine vibrations. And so and of course, there are some like that are really connected to, say, the land of the dead, you know, poisonous plants, for example. And so we've got a real spectrum of kind of frequencies within which we can work with the plant spirits. And so they've evolved their eternal spirit to be able to move between all these different states of consciousness really easily, really well, you know. And so they are much more awake, if you want to use that term, than we are. And so, but we're getting there. You know, we've really, as humans, we've pretty much mastered the astral body. We're mastering our emotions. That's what this is the realm of self-mastery. So we're getting there. We're understanding ourselves on this emotional level. And then the next level is the mental level. And that's really the highest self aspect, that kind of unconditional love. And we can all feel that that's where we're moving towards, isn't it? And Rudolf Steiner in Anthroposophy, he explains this as that the astral form in human evolution, we've been able to give actual form to the astral body. So that part of our emotional self. And so for psychics or people who have taken plant medicine, you can see the astral body of other people. That's the part that I work with my clients, their astral body. But then he says that the next layer is just that the mental layer, we haven't really given form to it yet. It's not, we can connect to that part of ourselves, but we haven't given it shape and form. And that's the mental body, the eternal spirit. And so this is our work now, to move into this place of giving form, shape, and much more consciousness to the mental layer, to our eternal spirit, to our kind of super consciousness. There's many words for it, the daemon in Greek theology. It's that kind of level of consciousness. And, we feel that's where we're moving towards as humanity, during this kind of, this consciousness awakening that's taking place.
Yeah, we are just scratching the surface in terms of working on ourselves and reaching a higher level of consciousness. And going back to the oak or alden for a minute, I was fascinated by the fact, if I make the comparison with the human body, our soul goes out, the avatar remains, the physical form stays back, we bury that, and then that's it. Does it happen the same with an oak or an alden, with a tree in general? When they get dry, their soul goes to their plant consciousness, or what exactly happened with the soul of that tree?
Okay, so I'm going to explain it from my Celtic understanding. Okay, I'm trained in the Celtic tradition. So how I understand it is that we have a soul. We all, as humans, we have a soul and a spirit. So we've got a body that's made of soul forces, and these are the elemental forces. These are the elements: the wind, the air, the fire, the earth, and the water. So, and we're made from those. This is an earth element body, but I'm comprised of water and fire of my digestive system. So these are elements at different and subtle and finer levels. Okay, so we've got the raw element that everything's made out of. We can experience the wind, we can experience the beautiful sea, etc. So we've got the raw elements. Then we've got subtle elements, and so these subtle elements. And more kind of like a physical earth element create our physical bodies. This is the soul forces. These are the forces that come from Mother Earth. This is why we are the children of the earth, because we get our bodies from the earth, from this realm. And so within that is a personality. Claudio is, that's your personality for this lifetime, this particular body. And of course, it's influenced by your karma. It's influenced by your kind of the time and place and location of your birth, your parents, your genealogical lineage, etc. But through that, your soul forces and through your personality is the eternal spirit that comes in and is able to experience this lifetime and journey from lifetime to lifetime. So in Buddhism, they call it substrate consciousness. There are many kind of like names for this aspect. And so for many traditions, we are two beings living in one body. We're kind of like, that's where this concept of higher self is, and highest self is not, it's not unique to kind of New Ageism or modern kind of idea. This is an ancient understanding of the nature of ourselves. But it's the same with the plants and trees. That's why that they have the soul forces that create this soul body. This one spider plant, has a cute little personality. But then within that, is the eternal aspect of the spider plant that is able to emanate many, 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 many forms of itself across the world, depending on the species. I don't know if you have spider plants where you are, but you know, so but it's the same. So it's the same concept. The plants and trees have this eternal aspect to them, this kind of super consciousness that that is able to, like, you know, I liken them to bodhisattvas, you know, in the Tibetan, in the Buddhist tradition, in that they emanate many kind of emanations of themselves. They emanate into lots of different places in the world so that they can help as many people and help the planet and do their thing, do their job here. They can spread around the world. They're not just concentrated into one person like we are, into one being. They've got many aspects. And so that benevolence comes through in the eternal aspect of the plants.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing, because it's quite interesting how they, again, interact in this realm and the next. And it's pretty much, they are doing the same in the physical world and the ethereal world as well. So they keep their good habits pretty much.
Yeah, you could say.
Emma, I know you work with poisonous plants, or what we consider poisonous plants. What type of healing do they do, and what will be the repercussions of those working with them with little experience?
Yeah, well, I only work with poisonous plants in essence form. I don't consume the physical constituents or chemicals or the physical parts of the plant. You know, because dosage is key for poisonous plants, and so they're only used by herbalists for very specific kind of reasons and very specific doses. So what I do is I make essences, and this is a medicine. This is a vibrational medicine. So it's taking working with the bioresonance of a plant, fixing it in water with a bit of brandy, and that's the fixer and the preservative. And so that, because of course memory is held in water. Water holds memory. You can kind of like imprint. I don't know if you've heard of Veda Austin, but her work really shows how, it really shows how water holds memory and holds imagery. It's beautiful.
She is one of my the contributors to my latest anthology, Love Letters to Water, which was published in November last year.
Okay, yeah, amazing woman, really beautiful work, and really shows, this kind of the depth and of water, the crystalline nature of water. And so you can, I invite the spirits of the plants to imprint their vibration into water, and you know, make it so that it's only their vibration in that water. So I have to kind of start with very structured and clean and pure water, and then I take that essence. So I do that with poisonous plants such as foxglove and the yew tree, so that I can work with the conscious intelligence of that plant, because of course everything's frequency, you know, and so the consciousness of all plants and trees have a particular frequency, or at least a bandwidth of frequency. And so through that is how its consciousness communicates and works. So by working with the essences, the bioresonance of the plant, we can connect to the consciousness of those plants as well. So it's a much safer way to work with poisonous plants, but no less effective. I mean, gosh, I did have a datura essence, and I have a beautiful datura tree outside, and wow, gosh, I'm glad I didn't take the physical plant, because the essence was enough. It was just so powerful. It gave me some really deep teachings. So yeah.
And do you usually harvest these plants when they are in the wild green, and then you dry them out, or what's the process?
To make an essence? No, you don't need to even, there are many methods for making essences. You can just kind of like Google them or look on YouTube. There's many different methods. However, I use a method where I work with the spirit of the plant. So I don't need to cut any part of it. I don't need to take anything from the plant. I'm literally connecting with the spirit of the plant and inviting it into the essence. And when you work in this way, because there are lots of different ways where people can make an essence, but they don't necessarily, the producer of the essence doesn't necessarily connect to the spirit of the plant. And so in my experience, they can be quite flat. But if you invite the spirit of the plant into the essence, and this is a methodology that, Native Americans use this when they're even collecting and harvesting their actual physical plants, is to invite the spirit into that plant because it's medicine. And so it's a co-creation. And so when you do that, your medicine is so much more potent. Your essences are so much more dynamic. It just creates a completely different way of making medicines. And so yeah, you don't need to harm any part of the plant, really.
Beautiful. That's good to know. Not that I'm starting tomorrow, but it's good to know that something like this can be done, and the vibration and the spirit of the plant is getting transcended into the memory of water. And again, I wrote 2 books about water, and I'm quite fascinated. And usually I ask my guests, what is their relationship with water? And that's why the idea of the anthology, and some of them participated and contributed to the anthology. So yes, I'm glad that you also mentioned water.
Yeah, well, it's the most magical element. It has so much mythology associated with it, so many beautiful spirits associated with it. It can be in the form of all the other elements, steam, ice, etc. We've got the sea. We're made of water.
The cradle of life. Yes,
it is. And so I'd love to read your anthology, actually.
Yes, thank you. Another key word that really attracted me got my attention from your book is the psychic surgery. How do you do that? And you mentioned that you use Wormwood to do this type of psychic surgeries. How exactly you work on doing it?
Okay, so with this process of working with the plant spirits, what I've done over a long period of time is I've spent a lot of time getting to know the plant spirits. So there's a tradition in South America of plant diets, plant dietas, where you set a period of time to only take and consume one particular plant. And so I've been taught by my teacher, Pam Montgomery, how to do that just with common native plants and trees. And so I've been doing it for many years, for about a decade, just constantly doing plant diets to get to know my different plants and trees. But during that process, my intention in working with plants is all about intention. My intention has been to teach me, for them to heal me, so that I can learn how the plant spirits work on a spiritual and emotional level, so I can help my clients. It can empower and inform my own healing work. And so each plant or tree, its spirit, like I said, operates within a certain frequency and bandwidth. And so that frequency and bandwidth applies to sections or aspects of our own psyche, our own frequency and bandwidths. So, for example, Wormwood will work on quite, it's a shadow plant, so it works on quite a lower astral level. So it will really draw out parasitic energies, because the lower astrals is a parasitic environment. And so it can really cleanse parasitic energies and entities from the human energy system. And so I will I'll diet with the plant, make a strong connection to Wormwood, meet the spirit of the plant, establish a very strong connection to it, understand its frequency really well, and then find out how it can heal, so that when I'm doing the energy field clearings for my clients, I work remotely, so I set up a safe sacred space, and I invite the astral body of my client into my space, and I work on the energy field from there. So I forensically go into the energy field and look for attachments, toxicities, damage, holes, traumas, etc. So that, and then each of my plant spirit team will be able to deal with a different aspect of the damage or toxicities that I find in my client's energy field. So Wormwood would deal with any parasitic energies. Foxglove deals with soul retrieval, if soul retrieval is required, opening and closing portals, cleansing certain toxic psychic debris. And then you've got other allies. I've got other spirit allies who deal with things like entity removal. That's my vervain spirit ally. Then you've got the yew tree, who kind of does other things to help protect your sacred space, make you invisible so that you're not kind of seen, your work's not seen on an energetic level. So it's kind of, you have to kind of think in a very shamanic way for this process. But so yeah, each of the plant spirits does a different job for me.
And there is any specific timeline for or period of time you have to diet with the plant before you start working on a client?
Yeah, I'll really get to know before I invite any plant spirit into my spirit team. I'll get to know it thoroughly, because there's, we are still, we're not enlightened yet. Okay, so we still are, part of us is still operating on the lower astral planes, so we can get infiltrated in terms of entities, that kind of thing, attachments, if we're not 100% sure of what we're connecting to in that spirit world. And so when I diet with the plant, I'll diet with it multiple times and get to know its frequency, how it feels in my body, how it feels in my energy field. I'll have I'll establish what we call a handle, which is a particular frequency that plant creates in my energy field. And that's like my direct telephone line. And so if I meet an entity in the spirit world and it's telling me it's one of my allies, if it doesn't connect to me through that frequency, I know that it's not it. Because just relying on your vision, your inner vision in that space is not enough. You have to rely on all of your senses. And so feeling comes into it very much. And this frequency, understanding frequency, is key to that. So there's no set kind of time frame really, because sometimes it'll take years to get to know some plants. Literally took me years to get to know vervain, because it's the magician's plant. So two of the main qualities that in magic that get taught to budding magicians, patience and perseverance. So it took me years to get to know that plant. But then with mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, it was just instant. Basically, she almost came to me. So I, even though I still kind of dieted with her about 8 times, so it depends. It completely depends whether you already know that plant, maybe from other lives, or whether, it depends on the type of plant you're wanting to connect to.
Thank you. And 2 questions. One, I'll ask the hardest one first. So do you find that in this time, the fake signals, when you try to connect with the plant and find the right vibration, the fake signals are much more predominant these days, or because of what's going on in the world, or is the same as before?
No, it's very different. So the astral planes are constantly evolving, because the astral is made out of human thought form. It's human emotion. It's but it's been made out of, like, for thousands of years of human thought form. So it's constantly evolving, because we are, and so over the last few years, we've had a huge amount of toxicity dumped into our world. sure we know what we're talking about. And so the astrals, therefore, are very different. And of course, as we evolve with our consciousness, we're teaching the entities in that space, even in the demonic realm, new things. They're understanding us in a different way. They're understanding how to get around our checks and balances to make sure we're kind of like not being infiltrated. So we have to be constantly evolving, constantly evolving our work. I'm constantly changing up how I work, constantly having new ways of checking in to make sure about, who I'm dealing with, making sure my spirit team's still kind of like tight. And so it's a very different place. We're dealing with new toxicities now, and so therefore a new astral space for sure.
So would you say that an apprentice will have a hard time protecting himself and learning, and needs longer time than before, than it took you to reach this level?
I don't know, because okay, I'm going to answer yes and no to that question. So
okay.
Yes, in that, look, you have to, if you don't get slimed by, I call it getting slimed, if you don't get slimed by something, how do you know it's vibration? How do you know you've been infiltrated?
Yes, you're right.
You don't know the frequency of these lower toxicities. So we need to experience them. But at the same time, these entities are kind of learning new ways of getting around things. So a lot of light beings are actually darkness dressed as light. You can go into the lower astral, which is kind of low vibration, but still come across light beings and meet Jesus, because they're kind of created by human thought form, but they're created, that it's the shadow aspect of them, because people don't know how to connect. People don't know how to move through the astrals and through their kind of like psyche and consciousness up to the kind of like the finer vibrations. And so they're connecting into things that they are not true. It's a very false place, the lower astrals. And so I've come across I help a lot of healers who have been infiltrated, and we're all, I'm not saying that I haven't been infiltrated either. I've learned my lessons too over the last few years, for sure. It's been a really tricky time. And so I've been helping other people who have connected to something, that invited something in, called something in that's not what they thought it was. And so they're kind of getting kind of slimed by it. So, but on the other hand, as well, what I'm finding is that it didn't take me as much time to learn all of this stuff, because I got transmissions from my teachers. So it might have taken my teachers 40 years to learn something, whereas it's only taking me 12. Mm-hmm. And so I think my kind of students are picking it up really quickly. So I think time is speeding up, but at the same time, we have to really be kind of like really super vigilant to the changing times that we're in.
Yeah, interesting. And the other question was, when you diet with plants, do you consume any other type of food, or is just the plant?
Yeah, it depends what type of plant diet I'm doing. So there are many, you can set your plant diet up however you want, depending on the amount of time you've got, the space you've got. So you could just do a standard essence protocol. So you could do a lunar cycle with an essence, and you carry on eating whatever food you want. Obviously, you want to try and cut out any kind of stimulants, because you're dealing with subtle frequencies. And so if you're still drinking coffee, eating red meat, eating kind of lots of dairy, then your energy is a bit kind of like dampened down, and so you're not able to kind of meet those subtler, finer vibrations where they're at. But if I run a plant diet, say with my students, or with other attendees, we just sometimes take 3 days where we fast, and then we only consume that plant, and we'll consume if it's an edible plant, we'll consume the physical parts of the plant and the essence only for that 3 days, and really just have a deep dive. And so we'll all have to detox, obviously, before we kind of arrive to that space, so we're not kind of having caffeine detox headaches or anything. So there's different ways of approaching it, basically.
Yeah. Emma, you mentioned wormwood, and I read in your book that you use the plant at the start of C19. I'm not going to use the whole word in 2020 to understand the truth and what's going on. Can you please share that experience with us?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, wormwood is a shadow plant. So of course, what better plant to kind of penetrate the lower astrals with than a shadow plant to see what's kind of going on at that level. So yeah, and wormwood works, teaches and has a very precise way of working. She teaches precision. So for example, when I want to look at something in that space, in the psychic space, I'll ask Wormwood, and if I can't see it properly, if I can't quite see the detail of it, or it's just not coming through, I'll ask Wormwood, show me the detail, and she'll just bring that. It's almost like a wave of energy with the detail of what I want to look at imprinted in it. So she's great at hunting things out, showing things, revealing things, but really specializes in parasitic energies. And of course, all of what we've been dealing with was very parasitic, wanting parts of us, wanting to take over our bodies, wanting to control us. And so wormwood is just such a great plant at kind of like illuminating all that. So yeah, she was a great ally.
I'm glad that you were able to find the truth from the beginning, and you're not fooled by certain messages.
No, and I think those of us who have kind of done our work already and connected to our highest selves, I don't think, it hasn't got anything to do with intelligence or anything like that. It's just simply how connected to your highest self are you.
Yes. And Emma, for someone who would like to start studying the plants and connect with plants, is the succession you mentioned in your book the right way to do it?
Oh, no, no, not at all. I listed mugwort first because she is the witch's first herb. So she got to be the first in the second part of the book. There's 13 chapters for each of it. And it just kind of ended up being 13. I didn't plan it that way. And then mugwort ended up being on the front cover. I had nothing to do with the front cover, but Inner Traditions just nailed it. It's just a beautiful. I was so thrilled with it. But mugwort ended up being on there, and wormwood. So the two Artemisias ended up being on there. But no, I recommend working with mugwort because she's such a visceral spirit, because she's worked with humans for such a long time, and is very easy to connect to as a plant spirit. So I really recommend, and she works in so many different ways and really helps us to develop our psychic abilities, our clairvoyance, our groundedness, because we really have to be grounded for this work. She really helps to kind of like bring us back into balance and our life into alignment, which if you want to go into kind of like shamanic or spiritual work, spirit world work in any way, you've got to have your 3D reality in balance first. Take care of the 3D, take care of your physical environment first, and mugwort helps you to do that. Bring harmony to relationships in your life, bring harmony and balance to what's going on in your life, and then you're grounded enough to move forward and open up into other worlds. So I recommend mugwort first, but then after that you just kind of choose and kind of like see who comes to you or what you're drawn to, which plants or trees are kind of getting your attention when you're out and about. So yeah.
Yeah, even the
Obviously,
dandelion, because we have dandelions everywhere in the world. So that's a very interesting choice.
yeah, yeah, dandelion's beautiful. So dandelion's probably one of the first ones to kind of like help you kind of cut through kind of old habits, cut out of the illusion of linear time. And it's a really kind of like great plant for all of that, and kind of helping us to kind of get rid of some unhelpful stuff so that we can move through into and working with the deeper plant spirits as well. Not that dandelion's not a deep plant spirit, it really is. But they all have their place.
Yes, indeed. I would like to ask you a question which is not related to plants, but to your spiritual experience. In the book, you mentioned about your first trip to Egypt and how powerful that was. And as we evolve on our spiritual path, we change, we discuss about that. So we go back to certain places with a different mindset, different perspective, different sensibilities. Have you been back to Egypt since? And if you did, what was your reaction?
No, I haven't been back since. It's taken me until this year to actually process and unravel all of that which I awakened in that trip in 2010. So yeah, it's taken me 12 years
Wow.
to unravel. 13 years, sorry, we're 2023 now. 13 years to unravel that. It's a full and it was really coming to the so it's a full Jupiter cycle to unravel that. So no, I've not been back, but it's been coming back into my awareness. I've been having conversations with people recently about it, and so I'm feeling I might go back. Yeah.
And here's another poke.
Powerful place.
Yes.
It's a powerful place. If you want to awaken some karma and awaken some aspects of yourself, give yourself a spiritual boost, head to Egypt. But you have to do it the 5-star route. You have to go. It's a challenging, very challenging place. So you need those 5-star hotels to stay in for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Emma, do you have a animal spirit you work with?
No, I don't really work with animals. I have a dream horse, although I don't work with it that much. No, that kind of totem, animals, we all have them apparently. And I do, people tell me that the frog is my spirit animal. But I don't really connect with it. No, I communicate with animals. I've got cats that live here, and so I communicate with the cats. So I communicate with them, but don't necessarily bring them into my spirit team. No.
Interesting. Thank you. Let's talk about your programs and services you're offering and how people can reach out to you and how exactly they can interact with you and learn from you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So my website, I've got a couple of websites. One is plantconsciousness.com, and this is my kind of my healing apothecary website. And then you can get through plant consciousness through the training section into naturalesoterics.org. And this is my School of Natural Esoterics, where I do all of my teaching. And so one of the perhaps more relevant for your audience is my upcoming online course called The Inner Essence of the Creative Mind. And this is a beautiful course that I'm teaching with a fellow healer about how to operate in that astral space, how to develop the psychic senses, how to operate safely, effectively, how to travel in that space, but also how to create and build thought forms that are useful, and how we can work with thought forms to empower our energy field, strengthen our energy field and protect it, but also how to build different thought forms that we can use in different healing modalities. So it's for people who are healers, psychic workers, magical workers, or anybody really who's looking to expand their understanding of consciousness. It's a great course for that. And it's really empowering to be able to operate at that level of consciousness really consciously, and to create from that level. So all of our thoughts are created at a higher level, but then how do we bring form to it? And that form is brought in through astral proto-matter. And then how do we then bring it down into the physical plane to affect change here on the physical realm? So that course is starting on the 5th of October.
And are plants involved in any way in this process?
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Oh, sorry.
No, I know I'd forgotten to include that. That this is also, we can build structures, astral structures, to actually help us to connect to plants. And so it really helps to deepen our relationship to nature. And my co-teacher, Paul Martin Strode, we'll be teaching a specific methodology for working with plant spirits in an astral structure. It's fascinating. I've been working with it for a while. I learned it from him, and it's really amplified my work and strengthened my own kind of personal sacred space. So yeah, it's brilliant. And so yeah, really excited to be starting this course on the 5th of October. It starts.
Thank you. I'll look at that. I might be interesting for me to join, and I'll see how my schedule is. And it's an online course, I assume,
Yeah,
and
it's
goes
online.
for 4 or 5 weeks.
Goes for 5 weeks. Yeah, just on a particular day. I'm not sure what time it equates to in your country, but if you can't make those particular times, then you get sent the recordings of the class and the Q&A anyway. So you get to kind of experience the course.
And do you organize any face-to-face either ceremonies or workshops on British Isles or not?
Yeah, I have a small retreat center here in the British Isles, in the southwest, in Somerset, in the Quantock Hills. And yeah, I run plant diets, training courses. And so they're kind of almost over for this summer. I only really run them through spring and summer, and then it's more online stuff in the winter. But next year, for sure, there'll be plant diets, in-person trainings. Absolutely. So it's all you can sign up for my newsletter at naturalesoterics.org and be notified of when they're open for booking.
Yeah, such an interesting subject, and we cannot exhaust it. We can talk for hours for sure, and especially you are so passionate and you put so much time into it. We are approaching the end of the interview. Any final thoughts?
Well, gosh, yeah, many after that talk. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, just explore the plants. There's so many. And you know, I appreciate that the plant kingdom is such, our queendom, as I call it, it's such a vast place that people get kind of a bit kind of like daunted when they're kind of like, well, where do I start? Just start. You start anywhere, you know, just simple things about just going into the wood and the forest and just seeing what comes through, just emptying your mind and sit under a tree for half an hour and then ask the tree to speak to you, you know, and just start somewhere, or learn a little bit of herbalism perhaps, because this does come in handy when you're working with plant spirits to know whether your plants are edible or not, and the dosages to take them, etc. So yeah, just start small.
Yes, and please don't forget, I mean, this is to my I'm addressing my subscribers, my viewers, that plants evolve too. Plant consciousness, exactly as we discussed, our consciousness evolves, everything evolves around us. The plants won't stay put in one place, their consciousness evolves too. So we keep learning from them if we open up to the plant kingdom.
And I'll just add to that, yeah, they learn from us too.
Yes.
So when we work, we're unique. We join with the plant spirits, and so between us, we create new medicine. You know,
yes,
because we're unique. So it's a beautiful process.
Emma, once again, thank you very much for your time, for the knowledge you shared with us. Good luck with all the programs and the plants you're working with.
Thank you so much, Claudio. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Share it, like it, download a free copy of my book when you visit my website. And until next time, love and gratitude.